There were festivities last night. I'm going to talk about this. There's also controversy about Donald Trump coming to the G7 summit. So I'm going to talk about that. And I'm going to tie it all together by giving you a history lesson so that you remember who we're dealing with. Before I get started, a reminder, please like, follow, and share. It means a lot. And if you or someone you know would like to work with me, the link is in the bio. All right, Trump at the G7 and the controversy. Let me start off by saying I agree that he should not be here. He's a felon. He should not be allowed into the country. But let me connect some dots on who we're dealing with here. Not just Donald Trump, but also Mohammed bin Salman. Okay, that's Senator Rand Paul. And he's been very critical of Donald Trump. So he was uninvited from the White House picnic. And then he went on camera to say that Donald Trump was petty and uninvited him from the picnic. So Donald Trump re-invited him to the picnic. That is Senator Alex Padilla being forcibly restrained and became handcuffed after this. What did he do? He tried to ask a question at a press conference. And he just stood up and wanted to ask a question, and then this happened. Videos are everywhere. Look up Alex Padilla. And then there's this. Pete Hegseth was questioned about the military going into Greenland and Panama. And he didn't directly answer the question, but he said that the United States has plans for, quote-unquote, every contingency. In other words, they have plans for military being used in Greenland and Panama. And if you don't think they have a plan for Canada, you're naive. The best case scenario is that the plan is not finished yet. They're just working on it. But there's a plan. Okay, and yesterday, JP Morgan, oil could hit $130 a barrel, but we're still calling 60. Why would it hit $130 a barrel? Oh, well, potential worst case scenario in the Middle East. U.S. to partly evacuate embassy in Iraq as Iran tensions rise. Let me interject this really quick. There is a war between the Saudis and the Iranians, and it's been going on since 1979. Just keep all that in your back pocket. And then the date. This evacuation of the U.S. Embassy in Iraq comes after talks between the United States and Iran over Iran's nuclear program have hit an impasse. Trump reiterated that the U.S. did not want Iran to develop nuclear weapons. We're not going to allow that. We're not going to have an armed conflict in Iran, and we're not going to be involved in any armed conflict in Iran. We're just not going to allow that. And then this. Israel attacks Iran's nuclear and missile sites, prompting Iranian drone strike retaliation. Oil did that. How fortuitous, because OPEC Plus supply hike aligns with strong summer demand, which was not materializing. But now that strong summer demand should keep this price elevated. How coincidental. How fortuitous. AJ, are you implying that these people get into armed conflicts over the price of oil? Yes. I've mentioned the Nixon shock in the past when the U.S. came off the gold standard, and they've been printing willy-nilly ever since. And that money seems to find its way into the pockets of Arab nations. Specifically, the OPEC nations. The Arab OPEC nations. Yeah, it's funny. The other OPEC nations, the non-Arab OPEC nations, they don't seem to end up with as much dollars as those Arab OPEC nations do. Anyway, I digress. June 1973. Oil is $3.56 a barrel. February 1974. Oil is $10.11 a barrel. What happened? 1973 to 1979, the Yom Kippur War. OPEC nations embargo everyone who is supporting Israel. Drives prices through the ceiling. They had a good thing going too until 1979, when that war ended. And this war began. January 1980. Price of oil is $32.50 a barrel. What happened in 1979 to drive prices through the ceiling again? Well, the United States was supporting the Shah of Iran, the dictator in Iran. But then the Iranian people overthrew the Shah, and they stormed the U.S. Embassy, and they took hostages, kicking off the Iran-Saudi conflict. Remember, this is a proxy war. The Saudis don't directly get involved in anything. Anyway, this hostage crisis is going on. Not a lot happening there. And something has to get done to stop it. Saddam Hussein invades Iran. September 22nd, 1980. That hostage crisis ended pretty soon after that. Despite production cuts, the price of oil kept falling from 1980 to 1985. And war is costly. Gotta put an end to this. Note the drop. The Saudis said there was a problem with OPEC nations, and they got very upset. So they jacked production. That was their excuse. Oil fell to $11.15 a barrel, almost a third of what it was before. With no money left to pay for that war, Iran and Iraq essentially just stopped fighting. And now this coincidentally well-timed event. These are the people we're dealing with. I mean, that's the people we were dealing with before Donald Trump. Before MBS. On an ethical level, I agree these people should not be at the G7 summit. On a diplomatic level, I agree they should be there.